So I think no matter if you have background or not, you have to be able to do things despite you feel unconfident, despite you have self-doubt, right? Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, the outcome is not important. I think it's a character you build by putting into the work.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Data Scientist Show. Today we have Emma Ding. Emma is a data scientist turned career coach. Previously, she was a data scientist and software engineer at Airbnb. I first discovered her through a viral Medium post called How I Got 4 Data Science Offers and Doubled My Income 2 months after being laid off. Today, her mission is to help data scientists land their dream offers by being strategic and efficient in their interview preparation at datainterviewpro.com. Among the 80 clients she worked with, 90% of them received data scientist job offers from top tech firms like Meta, LinkedIn, DoorDash, etc. There were over half of them who got the offers within just 2 months of joining the program. Today, we'll talk about how she doubled her salary and got into Airbnb after she was laid off, her experiences at Airbnb during the first half of this podcast. And during the second half, we'll talk about new trends in data science interviews and her best strategies to get a data scientist job. Buckle up. And if you like the podcast, subscribe to the channel and give me a 5-star review. Welcome to the show, Emma.
Thank you, Diana, for the intro. I'm so excited to be here. So excited to be on the Data Scientist Show.
Yeah, so even before I met you, I have been recommending your YouTube channels on product analytics, A/B testing to my friends who want to get into data science. So I'm very excited to chat with you today. And previously, we mentioned your viral Medium post. And for folks who haven't read your story about how you got laid off, doubled your income, got into Airbnb, can you tell us about your story?
Yeah, sure. I'm so excited to share that story with your audience. So the layoff happened almost 3 years ago in 2019. So that was the layoff I experienced, the only layoff I experienced in my career. So the story, maybe I can give you a little background story of that. So I got my first data science job in 2017. And I worked there for 1.5 years. And my manager brought me the news right before the Christmas holiday, 2018, that I was going to be laid off in 2019 January. So I was pretty shocked because I got 30% increase in my compensation just a few months ago. And I was so motivated to work on an important and impactful project. So I was so shocked when my manager told me that news. And also I was freaking out because I was not prepared, mentally prepared to find the next job. Also, I believed there was no job openings during the holiday, right? Because it was at the end of the year. And most companies, they probably freeze their hiring at that time. And I'm not sure when there will be openings in the next year. So I was freaking out as well. So that's pretty much my feelings after hearing that news I was going to be laid off. And so despite feeling shocked and uncertain about my future, I did everything I can to find the next opportunity. I get connected with former colleagues, I get connected with friends and see if any company is still hiring at that time. Yeah, and luckily I actually got an offer from a startup as a software engineer within 2 weeks. So I was regained my confidence a little bit after getting that offer. So that's the layoff story. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And thanks for sharing your story. So after you got laid off, what was your strategy to get your data science offers?
Yeah, so I think the first difficulty was to find interviews because I was not very confident about my background. I only had a civil engineering degree at that time, which is not considered as super relevant to data science, right? And I felt I was very lucky to land my first data science job. So I was not sure if I can find a good data science job in a good company. So my strategy, I think the first step is to overcome my unconfidence or imposter syndrome to, actually, do the best I can to find an interview opportunity. And then the next step is to prepare for interviews, to study, all the subjects I need to land a data scientist job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So can you give us some details and how did you form a plan? How did you prepare for the interviews? How did you study, for example? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I think the most important thing is to be clear on what position I was looking for. So based on my background at that time and my experience, and what I was looking for was basically data scientist, analytics positions, because I think that's the area that I probably have the most chance to get into. Even though I got the self-engineer offer from a startup, I rejected that offer because I was thinking I still want to pursue opportunities at top companies. So I think it's also important to come up with a list of subjects you need to study. At that time, I did not have any experience working on A/B testing, but that is one of the key areas that get tested during interviews, right? So I come up with a list that I need to practice A/B testing, SQL, and product case questions, and statistics, of course. Yeah, basically a list of subjects I need to be prepared. And then once I have that plan, I just be very focused on what I need to study to be able to crack interviews. So I think that comes down to three things. You need to be clear about what you are looking for, and you have a list of things you need to be prepared for, and then you execute your plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So when you prepare your interview and during interview process, for example, maybe you only studied for 2 weeks about A/B testing, you're not fully ready for the interview. Would you take a interview, or you only study till you feel 100% confident and you batch your interviews?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, yeah, I think it's hard to, maybe my experience is a little unique because I was laid off, right before the Christmas holiday, and there was no job openings at the time. So I have to, basically, I was forced to study full time until I have a interview opportunity, right? So actually, when I started interviews the next year in 2019, I think I started interviewing in February. I was pretty confident at the time because I did lots of practice by myself. I read books. I practice, by myself. I record myself. I analyze my performance if I try to answer an interview question. So I did lots of practice at that time. But for people who have lots of interview opportunities, I would suggest definitely doing lots of practice, but maybe do more mock interviews before the real interview, so that you have, you get enough practice to be prepared for the real interview.
Yeah. That's a great advice. So now you have helped so many people with their data science interviews. And looking back on your own journey, would you do anything different when you prepare your interviews?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I could have improved is to have more confidence in myself, because I was laid off in 2019, and my self-esteem was at the lowest point because I was like, oh, I probably don't deserve a good opportunity because I was laid off, and it's just lots of self-doubt at that time, right? I think, even if it's probably not your fault, right? Because companies, they probably want to cut budgets, right? They love people. And actually, for the experience I had, the company actually laid off the whole engineering department. Yeah, but I had lots of self-doubt. I was like, maybe I don't deserve a good opportunity at the top company. So I think overcoming that was very important to move forward. And actually, that's something I think, and actually, that's something many of my students experience. They lack of confidence because of many things. Maybe because they were laid off. Maybe because they failed many interviews, right? Maybe because they did not get any interview after a few months, trying very hard. So I think that part is very important. You have to believe in yourself to move forward in the process because it's a very difficult process.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And previous you mentioned you never did any A/B testing, kind of not familiar with product analytics before. I want to share that before I joined Amazon 7 years ago, I studied statistics in school, but I wasn't very familiar with the specific A/B testing from online business perspective. Also took some time to learn just during my interview. So my question for you is, for someone who didn't have a lot of experience in statistics, experiment design, do you think they can learn A/B testing and product analytics in a few months?
Yes, definitely. I think that goes back to my previous advice, which is you want to have like overall understanding of what the requirement is, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned A/B testing and statistics. I think probably maybe by talking with people or seeing some sample interview questions, you get a sense of what the requirement is, right? And you know what depth of knowledge is required. And then there are a bunch of resources out there. I mean, my YouTube channel is one of the resources you could leverage. I share lots of things related to A/B testing, doing A/B testing in practice, and some statistics interview questions. So there are a bunch of resources you could leverage, and you probably could have a list of resources you want to learn about, right? And repetition is also important. You repeat a few times. Maybe you try to use your own words to explain some technical terms, right? Explain some technical terms, answer some interview questions. Try to do more practice. I think it's definitely possible to gain the knowledge, even if you don't have real experience. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And when you prepare for your interview, you're doing that full time. So did you have moments when you feel so scared that, oh, what if I've never have a job, and then, or you want to give up? How did you push yourself through that phase?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely have moments of self-doubt and moments of being unmotivated. Yeah, so I think everyone experienced that, right? Like imposter syndrome or self-doubt, right? I think the key is sometimes you calm down and realize that the worst scenario is that you don't do anything and you still don't have a job, right? And other than that worst scenario, anything you do is a benefit, right? You improve yourself, you improve your knowledge, you improve your skills. And I think at the end of the day, the character you build by putting into the work is the most important thing. I think for me, I was very stressful. And I remember I lost maybe 20 pounds in the 2 months period of time. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, once I could do better, probably is to be less stressed out and focus more on just acquiring the knowledge. Because there are lots of things out of our control, right? Like maybe some your dream companies do not have any headcount. Maybe the interviewers do not show up, right? There are lots of things you cannot control, but what you can control is to be able to put in the work and just be a better self, right? To improve yourself.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. So after you prepared for interviews for about 2 months, you got an offer in Airbnb. So can you tell us what was it like when you just joined Airbnb? For example, what was your day-to-day?
Yeah. So I landed an offer with Airbnb for a data scientist, infrastructure, and foundation position. So Airbnb has like different tracks of data scientists. At that time, there was 3 tracks, like analytics, algorithm, and inference. So my track at that time was a new track. It's called infrastructure and foundation. So it's basically data engineers embedded in a data science team. So I was responsible for building pipelines and also be responsible for the data quality that the data scientists use to do analysis, to do machine learning models. So my day-to-day work, actually the work itself did not change a lot compared with my previous company because I also did lots of data engineering stuff, pipeline, machine learning related projects in my previous company. So the work itself did not change that much. But I think the major benefit of after joining Airbnb was that I got an awesome mentor after I joined because, as I mentioned, the track was a new track, right? And the person who's the leader of that new track, Aaron, became my mentor. And I had weekly meetings with him. I learned a ton of things from him, like not only technical skills, but also soft skills, how to, generate ideas, like generate ideas for impactful projects, how to work with people. I think most importantly, he gave me that confidence and mindset, like to pursue whatever you want to do. I think that's very important because he has been with Airbnb for like 7 years at that time.
Yeah.
So he's very senior. He's one of the maybe one of the earliest data scientists at Airbnb. So himself changed from being a data scientist to data engineer to machine learning engineer. So he has done a bunch of stuff at Airbnb. Yeah, so he's basically a full stack data scientist. So yeah, he tried a bunch of things, and I was also motivated to try things that I'm not familiar with and things I'm excited about. Yeah, so I think that's the most important part from the mentorship.
So I think it's definitely important to have a mentor when you just join a company. Can you share something more specific, for example, soft skills that you learned from your mentor?
Sure. So he taught me like how to work with people. As I mentioned, the specific position I was in was more like a data engineer embedded in a data science team, right? So my position was very technical. I kept my head down, like to write code, to build pipelines, and to only work with data scientists within my team. And he taught me like how to come up with ideas by looking at our data and then maybe try to solve other teams' problems. For example, product teams, right? And infra teams. So I think I really get that mindset that I should not only focus on what the team's problems, what the team is working on, but also how can I leverage my skill sets to help other teams, other functions, right? We even had a project working with a customer support team, which was very impactful. Yeah, so I think like how to be proactive, to come up with ideas, to talk with people, to validate your ideas, and how to implement it from end to end. All those things I learned from him.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And you later changed teams. You changed your title also from data scientist to software engineer. Can you tell us what made you want to make the change?
Sure. So the main motivation did not change actually, because when I joined Airbnb, I mentioned the position is actually the only offer I got that is not on the analytics track. So I got other offers from other companies on the data science analytics track, and that position with Airbnb was the only one that's more like a data engineer position. Yeah, so I'm really into that because in my previous company before Airbnb, I acquired fundamental knowledge on distributed system, big data, and machine learning. I want to hone my skills in that area. My motivation did not change. And I was thinking, what would be a good opportunity for me to continue learning what I really want to learn? And that is also, part of things I learned from Aaron. Like you should pursue whatever you want to. So I changed to a different team that is in the Eng department. And that team was a combination of full stack engineers and data engineers. So my work become like a half data engineering and a half software engineering. Yeah, so that's the new position.
So while you were at Airbnb, you have the very popular blog on Medium about how you got into Airbnb and then your interview experiences. I assume a lot of people saw the blog and message you on LinkedIn. Was it at that time that you started to help people to get data science jobs?
Yeah, I shared that blog post mainly because I observed many of my data scientists were laid off because of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to share, my personal experience, like how to prepare to land a new job. There were a ton of people reach out to me via email and LinkedIn, and I started helping people to answer their questions, and then I realized that many people ask very similar questions. Like actually one of the questions you asked me before, right? Like how do you acquire A/B testing knowledge
Mm-hmm.
without real work experience? So I was thinking maybe creating videos could be a good way to convey my message and the knowledge. And so so I started my YouTube channel. After a few weeks, I shared that blog post.
Okay. Yeah. And then what made you want to do this full time, made the transition?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are a few things. I think that is related to my motivation to start the YouTube channel. So when I started my YouTube channel, my goal was to just help people, to prepare for interviews, right? To land their dream jobs. And after I have been doing that for some time, I do see the need to create content more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot get lots of time to do that with a full-time job. So I was thinking either I continue to work full-time and consider making videos and helping people as a part-time side hustle, or I can commit myself to do this full-time. So yeah, I have been thinking for a few months, and I ended up deciding I should pursue the full-time because of the impact I see in
Mm-hmm.
helping people. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm glad that now you're doing this full time to help people get jobs. So when you were interviewing, that was 3 years ago, and now you have helped almost 100 data scientists. What was the change? What is the current trend of data science interviews?
Yeah, happy to share that many companies freeze hiring. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so in general it becomes more competitive, and interviews are becoming harder.
Mm-hmm.
Like a few years ago, maybe most companies only ask you if you know the fundamentals of A/B testing, right? If you have a basic product sense in order to work with other teams. But now the thing is, the depth of knowledge is required, especially
Mm-hmm.
for top tier companies, right? Like social media companies, right? Like Meta and LinkedIn. They not only test you if you know A/B testing, they also want to know if you have practical knowledge, right? Like for example, how to deal with high skill data, right? How to how to analyze if network effect impact a particular experiment, right? And how does network effect impact the experiment result,
Mm-hmm.
right? This kind of
Oh,
practical
sorry.
knowledge.
Could you say it again? What effect?
A network effect.
Network effect. For
Yeah.
folks who are not familiar, can you just explain a little bit what is network effect?
So maybe to put it simply, it's like if you are a user of a social media platform, right? So your activity is impacted by your friends, your social circles, right? If they use that platform more, it's very likely you will use the platform more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like, to put it very simply, that's how network effect works.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, going back to your our conversation. So you're talking about not just A/B testing, but also social media company might ask network effect.
Yeah, and also on top of that, for companies have more complicated business models like DoorDash,
Mm-hmm.
Uber, right? DoorDash is actually like a three-sided marketplace business model. So for this kind of business, they also ask you to know about causal inference, for instance, like because their business model is complicated. There are lots of factors may impact an experiment, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they sometimes they cannot use the typical A/B testing method to run experiments. They probably have to use causal inference to get valid results.
Yeah. For example, they might need to construct some study on observed data and then have some structures to see if you can have some statistical significance, not just through randomized experience, but from observational data. So it's kind of like what economists will learn some structure in the causal inference. So those are great insights. And for folks who are not having those background in, econ or math, statistics, how can they prepare for this depth of interview?
Yeah, there are lots of ways. You can, it depends on your learning style. If you learn by watching videos, there are a bunch of videos you can find on YouTube. If you learn by reading, which actually I'm a reader, so you can also read books. There are a ton of books from the basic level to more advanced level. You can read those books to build your knowledge as well.
So what are some books you recommend for folks to learn more about A/B testing and causal inference?
Yeah, sure. There's one amazing book I recommend on my YouTube channel. It's called Trustworthy Online Controlled Experiments by Ronnie Kohavi, along with two other co-authors. And for causal inference, there are a bunch of resources out there, but two books. One is called Mastering Metrics. The other one is mostly harmless econometrics. These two books are like entry level and easy to read.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So previously you mentioned general topics for data science interviews. There are like A/B testing, product analytics, statistics. Is this still the same topics these days during interviews? What's kind of the general process and topics covered? Say for your recent experience, can you share some of those with us?
Sure. So it depends on the different category of data scientists. I actually talk about that on my YouTube channel as well. So I would say there are two general categories of data scientist positions. One is data scientist analytics. The other one is data scientist algorithm. I would say algorithm driven data scientist or analytics driven data scientist. So these two kinds of positions have different requirements on technical skills and different interview process. For data scientist analytics type of positions, I think the interview does not change that much. So basically statistics, SQL, product case, and also A/B testing. And for algorithm-driven positions, you want to focus more on machine learning and coding. And for some companies, they don't differentiate between data scientist algorithm and machine learning engineer. So it's really important to clarify that with the recruiter or the hiring manager, what exact position they are hiring. And do you have the knowledge or skills that's needed for that position?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So for someone who has doesn't have experience in statistics nor experiences in computer science, would you say it's easier to get a job in the data science analytics tracks compared to the algorithm track?
Yeah, good question. Like neither statistics nor computer science, just like me, right? So yeah, I would say if you want to land a data science job without relevant background, yes, I think probably the easier option will be data scientist analytics position because the bar in general is lower than machine learning driven data scientist positions.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. So you mentioned there are two tracks. Can you tell us more details about the difference between the data analytics and machine learning track, and for folks who want to decide which position they need to target, what is your advice?
So for the two positions, I think the main difference is the technical skills required. So for the algorithm-driven positions, machine learning is a key part of the interview process. And some companies may treat data scientist machine learning or data scientist algorithm positions as machine learning engineers. So machine learning and coding are key parts in the interview process. So I would say you have to be familiar with computer science fundamentals and be able to understand and implement commonly used algorithms, like computer science algorithms, right? Like binary search, like sorting algorithms. And also you are familiar with the machine learning algorithms, right? You are able to code up maybe k-means from scratch. So you have this knowledge. And for data scientist analytics type of position, it has more emphasis on product case as well as A/B testing. So because you are going to work with product managers to launch products and features to a company's customers. So the focus is a little different.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And similarly, from my experience, I think some companies, when they interview machine learning engineers, if it's for a senior position, they might ask some lead code questions. But some companies prefer to ask similar machine learning related questions. So the one you mentioned, code k-means. I've also seen some companies ask, oh, how do you code a convolutional layer from scratch, or like a LSTM layer or something like that. Or some companies don't really care about the specific algorithm, but they will ask you to maybe just solve a problem or build a few CNN. They will tell you, oh, what is the number of layers I want to have? What is the number of some parameters they tell you? Can you use like PyTorch or TensorFlow to build architecture for me? So you want to be also familiar with the machine learning, deep learning architecture you use. So because of these questions, usually you will need to have some experiences either from your previous courses or projects. I would say it's still possible to prepare within 2 months, but you probably need longer time to study.
Yeah, totally agree. I think machine learning driven positions have higher emphasis on machine learning knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And those kind of questions are less frequently appeared in the interview process for data scientist analytics positions.
Yeah. And both position would ask about SQL questions, right?
I think it depends on the company. Some companies probably don't ask you to do SQL interview for machine learning oriented positions.
Okay.
But some companies do. Yeah, I think it depends on the company.
Yeah, but for analytics positions, you definitely need to be able to do SQL, and also you need to do it quickly, right?
Yeah. But I think in general, SQL and statistics are two things that data scientists should be familiar with, right? Even if you don't get interview questions, you probably still need those knowledge in the actual job.
Yeah, and in terms of SQL questions, what is the trend in the current interview? Do you think it's similar to before? Anything changed?
For SQL specifically, I think two things are very important. One is your proficiency. I think for many companies, based on my personal experience, many companies they ask multiple SQL questions in one interview round. So basically, you probably get 3 to 5 right interview questions, and your speed to solve those problems also matters, right? So the proficiency is important. Other than proficiency, I think you also want to have readable query instead of have spaghetti queries, right? It's hard to read and hard for people to understand. Yeah, I think readability and proficiency are important for SQL interviews.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And so how do people best prepare for those type of coding interviews?
So for SQL specifically, I think just a practice. If you don't know anything about SQL, you probably start with some free resources to understand what are the common user functions, right? And then you probably practice some questions online and to have the basic level of understanding of how it works. And then you probably do more advanced problems to get familiar with harder problems, because very likely you will get challenging problems in the interview process. And as I mentioned, proficiency is important. So if you've never done some questions involve window functions, for example, it's probably very hard for you to have the right solution during the interview. So I would say practice, have the basic understanding first, and then do more practice for challenging problems to enhance your understanding and to improve the proficiency.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And so after we understand better about which position we want to target, we're gonna make plan and then execute. Can you share more advice on those two stages?
Sure. I think once you are clear on your target position,
Mm-hmm.
it's relatively easy to make a study plan because you will have a list of things you need to focus on to land that job, right? But the hard part or the hardest part is to execute the plan because you probably get overwhelmed by the amount of things you need to learn, right? You probably also feel discouraged if you learn slowly, right? So those things might keep you being productive on executing that plan. So I would say maybe start from small things. Maybe try to do one SQL problem per day. Gradually you will build the proficiency, you will build the familiarity, and then you feel more comfortable tackling more challenging problems. So I would say executing the plan, the execution part is most important and also the most challenging part. Yeah, also it's you might also get distracted by social media, right, or some news, and it's hard to focus on the things you really need to do. So yeah, so I think the execution part is most challenging.
Yeah. So on the technical part, after you mentoring almost 100 data scientists, what are some common mistakes people make?
Common mistakes. um, I think the major takeaway for me after working with over 100 students and clients is that many people feel unconfident when approaching interviews and finding a job. The lack of confidence may be due to various reasons, right? So maybe they have tried quite some time and they don't see results, like they don't even get interviews, or they got interviews but they were not able to crack interviews, right? They keep failing interviews. So I think the major takeaway for me after working with hundreds of students and the clients is that many people don't have the confidence to continue the process. They give up because of lack of confidence. And the reason they don't have confidence is that actually there are several reasons they might lack confidence. One is that they probably put into lots of effort and they don't see any result. Like, they have trying very hard. They have been trying very hard to land interviews, but they don't get any interviews. Or they got some interviews, but they failed some interviews. They were not able to crack interviews, right? So they spend lots of time and they don't see the results they want to get. Some people probably also have the misconception like interviews is a numbers game, right? So the more interviews you get, the more likely you will land an offer. But sometimes it's not true because probably you get a bunch of interviews, but you are not able to crack any of it, so you don't see the results. Yeah, so I think lack of confidence is probably one of the most. I think lack of confidence is probably one of the patterns I see among people who end up giving up the finding a new job.
Yeah. And from the technical perspective, what are type of mistakes people usually make during your coaching sessions with them?
Yeah, in terms of technical ones, I feel some people try to have a cheat code system, meaning that if they interview with some company, they only learn the interview questions. They try to search interview questions online, and they only learn things related to those interview questions.
Yeah.
So they don't have the foundation in place, right? They try to cheat the system and try to say, oh, if I can get lucky, and the interview questions I'm going to get is exactly the same as what I have prepared before, so that I can maybe land offer with this company. But most of the cases is not happening.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. We all want things happen fast, but we have to do the hard work, learn what's going on behind the question, because you can find the sample question and recite the answer, but the interviewer can always ask a follow-up question to ask you to expand on a specific topic. And that's where they can figure out, whether you just remember the answer or you really understand the concept.
Right. Totally agree.
And for the students who have found jobs faster versus those who kind of struggle to find jobs, what are something you feel they do differently? Or what about their background you think that helped them find a job faster?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's never about the background. It's more like, despite they feel unconfident, despite they have imposter syndrome, do they choose to move forward?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think people feel imposter syndrome all the time, right? If you try to improve your life, or you try to land a better job, you try to find a better job, right? You try to improve your relationships, you face imposter syndrome. You might doubt if you deserve it or not, right? So I think it's just like common that people have that imposter syndrome, and but some people choose to face it and choose to move forward despite they feel maybe they are not able to do it. Maybe they feel they don't have any track record, right? But they still keep doing the things they need to do in order to land a job. So I think people who execute are those who see results most quickly.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Right now, in your datainterviewpro.com, what do you teach people?
Yeah, so I currently I have a course called Product Case Interview Pro, focusing on the product case interview. So the reason I choose to do that course first is I see many people are struggling with that type of interview because it's more open-ended compared with SQL and statistics. It's more open-ended, it's more challenging, and it requires lots of critical thinking to be able to express yourself well during interviews. So so I have a course on that. And for that course, people study how to build their product sense step by step. And I also have a select community for people to connect with each other and to do mock interviews together. So that's the course is about. Yeah, it focuses on its product case interviews.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I know it's a course that people need to purchase to get in, and you spend a lot of time on it. I wonder if you can share a few key points for example, how to build a product sense.
Sure. Yeah, I think there are a few components you need to know in order to build your product sense, right? First of all, I think being familiar with the common business models like two-sided marketplace, social media, and search engines. What are the uniqueness of those business models, and what are the challenges of those business are really important for you to understand the business itself, right? And I think another component is metrics. Being able to have clear definitions of metrics and define metrics rigorously is very important skills of a data scientist. And the third component is A/B testing. I think we talked about A/B testing a few times. We mentioned A/B testing a few times, and it requires lots of practical knowledge to be able to answer interview questions. I consider those three components as a foundation to build your product sense.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And do you still see companies requiring a lot of take-home challenges?
It also depends. I think probably less than half companies require take-home challenges based on my observation. This is pure my observation.
Yeah.
Because take-home challenges, it takes time for candidates to finish, right? To work on them. And it also takes time from the company side to review if the candidates did a good job or not. So it requires time for both sides. But there are still companies doing that.
And for take-home challenges, do you have any advice?
I think take-home challenges covers a wide range of topics. It may be A/B testing take-home challenge. It may be machine learning project. It may be some specific, fraud detection project. So it requires not only technical knowledge, but also how you use your technical skills to solve real business problems. So I think it's hard to acquire, the skills to ace take-home challenges in a short amount of time. It really requires you to have the technical knowledge in place, and you also have good understanding of the business problems. But I think maybe one thing could be helpful is you have maybe some template, like for commonly used models like linear models or tree-based models to run models quickly. You also have some code template to do visualizations. So those might help you a little bit, but again, take-home challenges are difficult because it also requires you to have the skills to connect your skills to to solving the business problem.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So now, say someone got their data science jobs. Do you have any advice on salary negotiation? Because you previously mentioned when you were looking for a job, you doubled your salary, and you also talk a little bit about that in your blog post.
So the ideal scenario is that you have competing offers. That's the easiest situation that you can ask for more, right? But if you don't have competing offers, you could also leverage some tips. I have videos on this topic, but maybe some quick tips is that you want to see if the offer is honest or not. If the offer is below the average compensation you see online, right? Like website like levels.fii has some average salary you could compare against. And if you see your offer is below the average, you definitely have some negotiation power to ask for more, right? Mention something like you have done the research, you have friends in the area, and what their average compensation are, and you can use that to negotiate for more.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And previously, you mentioned a couple times whether when you're transitioning into a new field or while you're doing your interviews, a lot of times people don't have the confidence. And also, from my experience, confidence are built based on some small wins from your previous experience. So during the interview process, how do you build confidence?
Yeah, that's a great question. And confidence is a topic I really love talking about. So I think to build confidence in the job search process is that you care less about the outcome and know that you can only build confidence by doing the work. I think it's not that you listen to someone and you read some books and you suddenly have the confidence, right? I think confidence is built over time, and you want to, by putting into the work repeatedly and consistently, you build the confidence step by step. So maybe it's helpful that I share my personal experience. Like when I started my YouTube channel, right, I had zero experience creating videos. I was not a good communicator, and I was not very comfortable in front of camera. And also, to be honest, I'm embarrassed in my earlier videos, but I still did it anyway, and I developed confidence in the process. So far, I have made probably over 100 of videos. Some of them are on my YouTube channel, some of them are in my course, and I think the process of put into the work and working on creating videos give me the confidence. I know that I still have lots of things to improve, but I'm confident that if I put into the work, I can create videos that's valuable to people. And also I can be more confident if I make more videos, right? So yeah, so I think even though there are still things you feel you are not perfect, you still want to get started right away. If I wait until I feel super confident on making videos, I probably will never get started.
Yeah.
Right? So I think interview is the same. You build your confidence by doing more interviews. You probably don't want to test your skill levels in real interviews. You can do mock interviews, before the real interviews, and you do a ton of them, and you build the confidence to express yourself, right? To present yourself, and then you will be very confident in interviews.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So I have a question about like a kind of specific strategy. So for example, I want to learn a few different topics. Do you suggest people to learn incrementally on different topics? Like every day, for example, today I learned one topic about regression, and also I do one SQL question, or do you suggest people just figure out one big topic within a short period of time and then tackle the other, or do you think people can, explore, find their own cadence?
You mean like how to study efficiently, right?
Yeah.
For different subjects. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think repetition is important. I think even if, let's say, you spend a whole week or like a whole month crack SQL, right? Probably you will forget about the details the next month. So I would say repetition is really important. So you probably want to study multiple subjects at the same time,
Okay.
and then you repeat those. So I typically like to combine coding, like related like SQL and coding Python, right? Coding Python algorithms with some more like with subjects requires more soft skills like product case. So basically you can maybe do 2 coding questions and also do some product case questions. So you have a combination of more technical and more soft subjects combined together. And then after you maybe finish one iteration, you want to start the next iteration to repeat the things you have to repeat, learning the things you have learned before, so that you can internalize the knowledge.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think when we just started learning, sometimes you don't know how much do I need to learn. Because one thing kind of surprised me when I go into the interview is how many basic questions people would ask me. For example, how do you interpret p-value to someone who doesn't understand p-value? Or just basically basic, how does cross validation works for machine learning? So because I never prepared for those foundational questions, so sometimes I stumble on those. So my question is, how do you find out whether I have the level of depth, or how do I allocate my time? How much time do I focus on getting very familiar with the fundamental questions, and how much time I need to focus on the more difficult questions?
Yeah, I would say you always want to focus on getting familiar with the fundamentals. I think that's the most important thing. And also, as you mentioned, probably majority of the questions focus on the fundamentals, right? So I think if your time is limited, you want to be really good at the fundamentals before you tackle more advanced problems. So if you have time, you can explore more advanced problems, and that will definitely make you stand out in the interview process. But if you have limited amount of time, focusing on the fundamentals will be key to ace interviews. And I see people who really good at fundamentals and never try to learn advanced problems can still land offers. But for people who only focus on very challenging problems and don't know the fundamentals well, it's really they land offers.
Yeah. And for the interviews for data scientists, junior kind of entry level data scientist versus senior data scientist, what is the difference in those questions or the processes?
I think the technical side is similar, but for senior data scientists, definitely require you to have more domain knowledge, right? If, for example, if you have lots of domain knowledge on fraud detection, that is a huge plus compared with a junior data scientist who have zero knowledge in that domain.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think technical knowledge, the requirement is similar, but senior data scientists have more domain knowledge, and they have more experience on specific field, and that is really critical to some business like a financial tech companies, right? So they probably want to hire people who have finance related backgrounds rather than people who have zero knowledge in that field.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And for someone who want to transition into data science, they don't have any related or not a lot of related things on their resume. So how can they approach recruiters, or what are some strategies for them to just get that first interview?
Yeah, that's a great question. I also faced that question when I was looking for my first job. So I guess my maybe the top tip would be to really showcase if you can offer something different. If you just if you don't have very relevant background and you don't have much experience, you can see if you can leverage your previous experience or knowledge on specific domain. Like the first job I landed as a data scientist was in a supply chain management startup, and I leveraged my experience and knowledge in transportation engineering to land that offer. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking if you could leverage what you learned before in a specific domain, that could help you convince the hiring manager that you will bring something different compared with other candidates. Yeah, but domain knowledge is hard to acquire. It's something that's not possible to prepare in like a few months, right?
Yeah.
You need real experience, and you have done some real projects to build up that domain knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The best way to transition is to see if you can transition within your company, or when you're thinking about transitioning, you can start to do some data related projects in your current position. Either you are a business analyst or software engineer or product manager. And once you have those related experience on your resume and with your studied for those interview topics, it might be easier for you to get the job. Or you can also start with a similar company need those type of domain knowledge that you already have. So basically leveraging where you already are, what do you already know for your next job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you mentioned practice is very important. I really like the story you mentioned. You will record yourself and then watch how you did in those questions. So if someone's doing a data science, studying data study for data science interviews, but they don't know where to find other data scientists to help them prepare for interviews, do mock interviews, what's your advice for them?
I think maybe it's helpful to reach out people on LinkedIn. I mean, your maybe your schoolmates, right? Your schoolmates, you can get connected with people who are also looking for jobs, and also some online forums. You can also maybe you leverage online forum like Blind to get connected with people who are also in the interview process, and see if you can get connected with people and learn together. Yeah. I don't really have very good tips on that, because my experience was that I was forced to look for my next job, and with a very short amount of time. So all I have done was basically just practice by myself. And I remember I did some like presentation, because some companies, they require you have do a presentation, right? So I remember I did a presentation in front of a few friends and asked them to criticize my presentation and give me some feedback. But other than that, I did not do mock interview with others. I mainly try to just talk out loud the answers, and then see how I can improve how I express myself.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And previously you mentioned we can use Blind, which is I think teamblind.com. You can find salaries, packages, and sometimes people might also post some interview questions there, and you might also find some people to do some mock interview with you. What are some other like forum or website that you recommend people to check out?
I mean, if you just get started, I think my YouTube channel is a great place for you to learn the technical knowledge, right? If you want to get a sense of the requirement of the technical knowledge, right? So you probably can see some interview questions and answers on my channel, and other I think maybe one super useful resource is like a company website. Like, many companies, they have their tech blogs, right? So you can see Airbnb tech blogs, Uber tech blogs. Those are the places you can really know what the company is working on, right? What are the problems they are solving, and how they approach those problems. I think if you have bandwidth, you could, go over those blog posts and see what are some interesting problems and how companies leverage data science to solve problems. And those can help you build the domain knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I have another question. I'm kind of curious. I don't know if I have an answer to that. So, say I go into a data science interview process. Maybe it's an on-site interview. There are multiple rounds, and then I feel like I didn't do well in one round, or maybe during with just one interviewer, I feel like I didn't answer one question very good. Is there a way for me to remedy that or make up for my mistakes?
So you mean you are still in the interview process, or that interview
Yeah,
was already completed?
I'm still in the interview process, but I feel like, oh, maybe the previous question I missed the point, or I don't know how to answer. I feel like I'm not doing very well. Like, is there some way I can still turn this around?
Yeah. So if you're still in the interview, right, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's my suggestion is just to be honest and acknowledge that you made a mistake. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, you asked me a metric question, right? And I
Yeah.
realized that my answer was not very very reasonable, maybe, right? And I mentioned that, hey, Daniela, I probably want to change that metric to a different metric because that metric does not reflect what we really want to measure here. I think it's okay to crack yourself maybe once or twice in an interview round, but if you keep making mistakes and keep correcting yourself, that might be a red flag. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's okay to make one or two mistakes and just mention that your answer to the previous question was probably not very helpful in that situation, and just be honest about it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And when I was reading your blog, you mentioned during the interview, always ask clarification questions. So, what are some other tips for people during the interview process?
Yeah, I think it also depends on the subject. I think the
Mm-hmm.
ask the clarifying question is probably the tip that applies to all the different types of interviews, right? So you want to
Yeah.
be clear of about the question, and then you maybe take some time to think about it, and then you answer it. But if you don't even know what the question is about, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to provide an answer to the question, right? So that tip applies to, I think, all kinds of interview questions. Yeah, I think other than that, maybe just remember an interview is an interactive process.
Mm.
As I mentioned earlier, if you notice you made a mistake, you can correct it, right? It's just a
Yeah.
conversation. It's interactive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you have to be perfect on every single question, and I don't think anyone can do that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think the key for interviews is for you to demonstrate your skills, right? Either it's technical skills like coding, for example, coding skills, or your soft skills like your communication skills.
Mm-hmm.
I think as long as the interviewer is convinced that you have you have the capability to contribute to the company, you
Yeah.
have the technical skills required, you
Mm-hmm.
have the communication skills required. That's good. That's good enough for you to ace the interview.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. So once in a while, I'll read a blog post or someone says, "Oh, data science is dead. Companies are not hiring for data scientists anymore," and etc. So, from your perspective, what is like the demand you see in the data science job openings? Do you see there are like more and more openings, or it's been flat?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I actually don't did not pay too much attention on the demand side.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are things you can control and things you cannot control. If you are really passionate about this field, right, the data science field, and being a data scientist, I think you should do it anyway instead of looking at some news or reading some blog posts that
Yeah.
might rob your confidence, right? Being a data scientist. If you're
Mm-hmm.
passionate about it, you feel strongly about being a data scientist, you should do it. I think it's your career, right? It's your responsibility to pursue whatever you want to pursue. So it's hard for me to say to comment on the demand of data scientists, but I would say probably focus on things you can control,
Mm-hmm.
and don't consume too much information that mind rob your confidence on being a data scientist, on being anyone you want to be.
Yeah, that's a very powerful message. And I don't really have the data point as well, but I think I just a general observation. I think there are still a lot of data science roles, and in fact, I think more companies realize they need data scientists to help them solve a problem, either analytics or business intelligence related, or machine learning. And also, I think. Machine learning is still a buzzword. It's very exciting. I'm interested in a lot of machine learning topics, but a lot of times simple analytics or experimentation, BI can solve problems. So my observation is there's a lot of demand for general data science roles, specifically for data analytics. I don't know. What do you think, Emma? Do you see more machine learning openings or the analytics openings? Just kind of a general observation.
Yeah. My observation is that the demand of data scientist analytics is higher than the machine learning oriented data scientist.
Yeah.
Because machine learning is just a one way or one method to solve business problems, right? You can choose to use it, you can choose to not use it if you are able to solve the business problem. I think if you are passionate about machine learning, you want to focus on using machine learning, leverage the power of machine learning to solve problems. Yeah, maybe you want to focus on the machine learning track. But if you just want to be a data scientist and you just want to help companies solve business problems, it doesn't matter. You have to be machine learning driven, right? You can use, simple, as you mentioned, simple analytics to solve problems as well. And, there are lots of problems can be solved by using simple methods, right? Maybe by using simple regression models, right? Or by running A/B tests. So I think the demand, my observation is that the demand is higher on the analytics side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. After your students got their jobs and then they talk to you about their current role, I'm kind of curious. What is their experience? Do you feel their data scientist job is exactly as what they expected?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have quite some students. They made the transformation that I'm really excited. I was really excited about their transformation. They made the transformation from maybe working at a completely different industry. I have students working at banking industry, and they made the transition from that industry to be a data scientist in the tech industry. So far what I heard was mainly about excitement and also interesting projects they are working on, being a data scientist. I also have students and clients who made the transition from maybe like a general company to a top tier company. Those people are also happy with their experience, especially after they, overcome their imposter syndrome, right? Overcome their disbelief, overcome their self-doubt to make the transformation and to land a job at the company they desire. So I think it's all about, like, if you make the transformation, you build the character, right? Being a person who overcome difficulties and who achieve something you really want. So I think it's an exciting thing if you made the transformation you wanted.
Yeah. And for folks who just got a job, just got an offer, and getting ready for their first day, what's your advice for them to prepare for a new career?
Maybe just celebration. Yeah, other than that, I think it's helpful to get connected with teammates, right? Like, I think you definitely, in the interview process, you definitely maybe talked with the team, right? And you probably can reach out to the team and ask people if there's anything you need to do to be prepared for the new role. And if you just, I think if you have been a data scientist and now you just land a job at a different company, the skills might be transferable already, right? You don't need to spend lots of time acquiring new skills. But if you are new to this field, maybe this is your first data science job, you probably also want to learn yeah, I think one thing I mentioned earlier is to maybe go over some of the blog posts on your company's blog, right? You can probably see how the company is solving some data science problems, and see if you can, maybe after you join the company, if you can contribute to, how you can contribute to part of it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And sometimes people will message me, hey, I just got a job. Should I go get a certificate? Should I get a course? My answer is similar to yours. Ask your manager, ask your teammate, what are some domain knowledge you need to study? Those things might not be as exciting as some, new Coursera courses, but that will be very useful in your day-to-day work. Even that's a very specific tool in your company or in your team, that will help you become a better data scientist, because your job is to solve the business problem. You have to understand what everyone else is using on the team before you think about some other, very exciting problem, but maybe not related to your day-to-day work. Not to say that you completely don't pursue your curiosity. I think in different stage of your career, you have different allocation of your time. So when you just join a company, maybe just focusing on the problems at hand. And once you feel you're more familiar with it, you can allocate some time to explore your curiosity, just learn something you find exciting. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, before we wrap up, what is something you're working on right now, Emma?
What I'm working on is creating a few courses to to help people land a job they desire. So I mentioned that I have the product case interview course, which focuses on the product case interview itself, right? So
Yeah.
I'm working on other courses like statistics and SQL, to help people on different areas of the interview process.
Yeah. I'm very excited to see you launch the course. So I know you made this. It's kind of a big transition from a engineer in a big tech company to a career coach. Um, so, what is something that you find most fulfilling?
Yeah, most in terms of the fulfillment, for me, I think the major motivation is like seeing that I'm able to make a positive impact in people's career and hopefully life. Yeah, I think that's very impactful to me, and that's the major motivation for me to continue working on my YouTube video or continue creating courses and helping more people. And aside from that, I think it's also I'm just super thankful that that I have been able to do what I'm doing right now,
Yeah.
like being able to get connected with awesome people like you, so that we can help the community together. And also, I also keep learning things. I learn lots of things from my students, my clients, and also people I work with. Yeah, so I think it's just very lucky for me to be able to do this. And and I think, three things. I think make an impact and get to know amazing people, and also keep learning new things.
Yeah. You mentioned you learned a lot of things from your students. Can you share maybe one or two things that you learned from coaching people?
Yeah, I think maybe one thing is that no matter you have, I have students who, as I mentioned, transfer from a totally different industry to the
Yeah.
tech industry, right? I also have students who work in the tech industry, but they land job offers with a better company. So I think no matter if you have background or not, you have to be able to do things um, despite you feel unconfident, despite you have self-doubt, right? So at the end of the day, the outcome is not important. I think it's a character you build by putting into the work, right? By doing the hard work. When someone else might try to find an extra excuse that why they don't deserve the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Maybe because they don't have relevant background. Maybe they don't have relevant experience, right? But you are doing the hard work. You are trying to put, your time and energy into improving yourself. And I think that's really, really meaningful to me, by helping people overcome their disbelief and doing the things and then see the results. I think the whole thing is just really really motivating to me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I always tell people there might be someone else doing your dream job just because they have the confidence to
Yeah,
apply. Yeah,
yeah,
or
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
someone get paid more than you just because they feel comfortable to negotiate and ask.
So true. That's so true.
Yeah, so based on your current observation on the trend in data science, what do you think the data science interview, what do you think the data science interview going to evolve in the next, say, 3 years?
Mm, I'm not sure. That's a great question. I'm not sure. I think maybe my understanding might not be right, but I think maybe it will be more. It requires more domain knowledge, and this field becomes more mature, right? Because maybe a few years ago, this field itself is even not mature compared with software engineering, for example, right? And different companies may have different interview process. Some might ask you to do some take-home challenges, right? And some might ask you to do hard lead code problems.
Yeah, same. I think people maybe not just domain knowledge, but maybe more experiences, even for people who want to transition. So I don't know if you have seen. I don't know if you think like portfolio projects would be helpful if you don't have any domain knowledge or previous process.
Yeah, it will. I think anything that is helpful to showcase your skills will be
Mm-hmm.
helpful. Maybe it's a presentation you have done, you create a video and share it on YouTube. Maybe it's a portfolio you mentioned, you showcase some project you have done.
Mm.
Yeah, those will be very helpful for recruiters to evaluate if you have the skills the company needs to to do the job, right?
Yeah, that's a great point to showcase your work in different ways. And a lot of time people ask me, oh, should I write a blog on Medium or GitHub or YouTube? It doesn't matter. You have to try it out. You have to try different ways, whatever fits your personality, your projects fits your goal works the best. And at the end of the day, the project you can finish is the best project.
Yeah.
So previously, you mentioned you're going to create more courses. So I'm curious, from you're building your business, do you want to be like a Coursera for data science interviews, or you want to be like lead code for people to, answer questions and take those type of challenges in their data science project? What's your ambition in your business?
Yeah, great question. My vision is that I still want to do coaching in the future. I think
Mm-hmm.
coaching is the way that I find most helpful to help people at individual levels.
Yeah.
Because I talk with people and then I know what exactly they are going through, right? Maybe in
Mm-hmm.
their mind, maybe I can help them to unblock their disbeliefs, right? And maybe I can help them solve technical problems. So I want to start coaching maybe sometime next year. I don't have a clear timeline yet, but the first thing is I want to have the courses ready so that people who plan to join my coaching program can have the high quality courses. They can learn by themselves and then they can get support from the community. So yeah, so it's neither Coursera nor lead code.
Yeah, that's exciting. And for folks who want to follow you and learn, maybe take your course, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on YouTube as well as LinkedIn. And they can also check my website, dateinterviewpro.com, to
Mm-hmm.
see updates on my courses. And also, I have like a free masterclass they can also attend by going to the website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I'm very, very glad that you have joined me in the Data Scientist Show to talk about the new trend in data science interview, and highly recommend Emma's YouTube channel, her Medium blog post, and her free masterclass.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.